Hello everyone. In this session, we focus on topic modeling, which I will also call theme discovery for customer and brand insights. The marketing problem is straightforward. We often have thousands of reviews, comments, or tickets, and we need a small set of themes that we can monitor, compare across brands, and connect to outcomes like satisfaction or churn risk. Sentiment analysis answers the question, how do people feel? Topic discovery answers a different question. What are people talking about? We need both, but today we stay focused on the themes themselves. By the end of this notebook, you should be able to explain what topic discovery is, run two classic baseline models, and then build a modern topic discovery pipeline that turns clusters of similar documents into interpretable topics with keywords and exemplar reviews. There are two main deliverables we will export at the end: a topic dictionary that is ready for human labeling, and a document level table that maps each review to a topic ID. Keep those two artifacts in mind as the concrete output of everything we do today. Here is the agenda. We start with why topic discovery matters. Then we run two quick classic baselines, LSA and LDA, mainly to build intuition. After that, we move to the modern workflow, represent documents as vectors, reveal structure, cluster, and then represent each cluster as a topic. Finally, we do a short, lightweight insight step and finish with optional diagnostics in the appendix. In this setup cell, we install and import the core packages we will use throughout the notebook. The key libraries are scikit-learn for vectorization and classic models, UMAP and HDB-scan for the modern clustering pipeline, and TQDM for progress bars so you can see long steps moving. We also set a single random seed once here. The goal is simply to make the run stable enough that your output is comparable to mine when you follow along. We will not keep repeating that point later. After you run this cell, you should see a short confirmation like environment ready and the seed value printed. Conceptually, topic discovery is about turning unstructured text into a small set of interpretable themes that support decisions. In marketing analytics, this matters because text is often the highest volume customer feedback channel. Reviews, support tickets, chat logs, and survey comments can easily exceed what a team can read manually. Sentiment analysis tells you the direction of emotion, like positive versus negative. Topic discovery tells you the content. For example, a negative score is not actionable until you know whether people are upset about late delivery, confusing pricing, product defects, or rude staff. The figure on this page summarizes the modern workflow. Represent, organize, represent topics and insights. Represent means we convert each document into a numeric vector using something like TF-IDF, an SVD reduced TF-IDF, or an embedding method. Organize means we reveal structure, often with a dimensionality reduction method like UMAP, and we group documents into clusters, often with a clustering method like HDB-scan. Represent topics means we translate each cluster into human-readable keywords and exemplar documents. A popular keyword method is CTF-IDF, which we will implement directly so the logic is clear. Insights means we summarize themes in ways that can be tracked and compared. For example, topic prevalence by segment, rating, time, or other metadata. Today we keep that step short. The main goal is to build clean topics and export the right artifacts for later analysis. Now we load a realistic dataset so we can learn by iterating quickly on real-looking text. The code is designed with two options. If you provide your own CSV file path, it will load your data and try to detect a likely text column. If you do not provide a file, it streams a sample from a public review dataset, Yelp polarity, using the datasets library. Streaming is helpful for class because we can grab a sample without downloading a huge dataset. We simply take the first n samples after shuffling and we store them in a data frame. The output of this cell is a data frame called DF with a column named text that contains the raw documents. In this dataset, we also have a label column where 0 indicates negative polarity and 1 indicates positive polarity. Later, that label becomes a convenient outcome proxy to see whether some topics show up more in negative reviews. After running, look for 2 quick checks on screen, the shape of the data and a few example rows. In our run, we loaded about 12,000 documents and there are no missing texts, which is a good starting point. Before we fit any model, we apply minimal cleaning. The goal here is not to make the text look perfect. The goal is to remove obvious noise in a consistent way while preserving meaning. Topic discovery is very sensitive to over-cleaning. If we remove too much, we can accidentally delete the exact words that define a theme. That is why we do not aggressively stem or lemmatize in this notebook. This cleaning function normalizes Unicode and HTML artifacts, strips simple HTML tags, replaces URLs and usernames with placeholders, and replaces numbers with the token. Using a placeholder is important because it prevents the model from treating every different number as a separate word. For example, waited 10 minutes and waited 30 minutes should share the same general theme of waiting time. We also normalize whitespace and clean up newline artifacts so tokens do not accidentally merge into weird strings. After the cell runs, you should see a small before and after preview. Check that the clean text is still readable and that placeholders appear where you would expect. Next, we run sanity checks that prevent common failure modes in topic modeling. First, we compute document length statistics. Topic discovery tends to work poorly when most documents are extremely short because there is not enough signal to form themes. We also plot a histogram of document lengths in words. Notice we clip at the 99th percentile so the plot is not dominated by a few extremely long reviews. What you want to see is that most documents have a reasonable length, not just 1 or 2 words. Second, we check duplicates. If many documents are exact copies after cleaning, clusters can become dominated by repeated text rather than themes. Third, we inspect the most frequent tokens with a simple count vectorizer. This gives us a quick sense of whether the vocabulary is dominated by informative words or by noise. In our output, the average document length is on the order of 100 words. Duplicates are essentially 0, and the fraction of very short documents is small. That suggests we have enough text for theme discovery to work. You will also notice that the token num is very frequent. That happens because we replaced numbers with "this is fine," but later it can also become a generic keyword. If it becomes distracting, one fix is to treat as a stop word in later steps. Finally, we create DF model by filtering out extremely short documents. This becomes the working dataset for modeling. Before we move fully into the modern pipeline, we keep 2 classic baselines because they build intuition with minimal complexity. A topic is a recurring theme across documents. TF-IDF is a way to turn text into numbers by emphasizing words that are informative rather than common. SVD is a compression method that keeps the main patterns while reducing dimensionality. LDA is a probabilistic model that represents documents as mixtures of topics and topics as distributions over words. We use these 2 models as reference points. If a modern pipeline is not producing reasonable results, a baseline often helps you diagnose whether the issue is the data, the preprocessing, or the clustering. In the next 2 code cells, we run LSA and LDA quickly and inspect the top words per topic. As you read the outputs, ask 3 simple questions. Can you name the topic? Are different topics actually different? And would the topic help a business decision? This cell runs LSA, also known as latent semantic analysis. The idea is to build a fast, topic-like baseline by compressing TF-IDF with SVD. Step 1 is TF-IDF vectorization. Notice we include unigrams and bigrams, so phrases like customer service can appear as a single feature. We also use minDF and maxDF to ignore extremely rare and extremely common terms. Step 2 is truncated SVD. We set the number of components to 10, so each document is represented by 10 latent dimensions. You can think of each dimension as a direction in the data that captures a pattern of words that often move together. After running, you will see the TF-IDF matrix shape and the document by component matrix shape. In our run, we have about 11,900 documents and around 10,000 features compressed down to 10 dimensions. You will also see the explained variance ratio. The number is small here, around a few percent, which is common with sparse text. The point is not to explain most variance. The point is to reveal whether there is interpretable structure. Now look at the top terms per component. Reading LSA topics is a bit different from LDA. The components are not probability distributions. They are weighted directions. So the top terms tell you which words define that component most strongly. Some components look generic with words like food, place, good, and the num placeholder. Other components are more specific. For example, a pizza component with terms like pizza, crust, and cheese, and a hotel component with terms like hotel, room, and stay. That contrast is the main lesson. LSA is simple and fast, and it often reveals theme-like structure quickly. But its components can be blurry, and they can mix generic words with specific signals. We use it as a reference point, not as the final answer. This cell runs LDA, latent Dirichlet allocation, which is the classic probabilistic topic model. The first difference is that LDA expects counts, not TF-IDF. So we build a count matrix with count vectorizer. Here, we keep it simple with unigrams for speed. Then we fit an LDA model with 10 topics. Conceptually, LDA assumes each document is a mixture of topics, and each topic is a probability distribution over words. A helpful mental model is this. One review might be 50% about service, 30% about waiting time, and 20% about pricing. LDA tries to estimate those mixture weights for each document and the word distributions for each topic. After running, you will see the count matrix shape and the document by topic matrix shape. Then you get the top words per topic. Notice that LDA topics often read like word distributions you can interpret. For example, a customer service complaint topic with words like service, manager, rude, and phone, or a hotel topic with room, staff, and night. The cell also prints a few example documents for some topics. This is a great habit. Keywords alone can be misleading, but reading a few documents immediately tells you whether the topic makes sense and whether the topic is coherent. The key takeaway is that LDA gives a clean conceptual framing, but in messy customer text, it can still produce broad or overlapping topics, and it can be sensitive to preprocessing and hyperparameters. That is one reason modern pipelines often move to representation plus clustering. Now we shift to the modern view of topic discovery. Instead of defining topics primarily through a probabilistic generative model, we start from a simpler idea. If two documents talk about the same theme, they should be close to each other in a meaningful vector space. So the workflow becomes: represent each document as a vector, group nearby documents, and then describe each group with human-readable keywords and exemplar documents. This framing is especially practical for marketing because it separates the hard technical part, finding similarity, from the human interpretation part, naming and acting on themes. In this cell, we build the first document representation for the modern pipeline. We start with TF-IDF again, which produces a sparse matrix with thousands of features. Sparse is fine for some models, but for distance-based methods like UMAP and clustering, it is often easier and faster to work in a dense, lower dimensional space. So we apply truncated SVD to reduce TF-IDF down to 100 dimensions. The output is doc embeddings docs SVD, a matrix with 1 row per document and 100 numeric features per document. Why is this useful? Because once every document is a point in a numeric space, we can measure similarity with distances. Documents with similar word usage patterns will be closer, and documents describing different themes will tend to be farther apart. On screen, verify the printed shapes. In our run, the output is roughly 11,900 documents by 100 dimensions. Also notice the explained variance ratio sum is higher than in the 10-dimensional LSA baseline because we keep more dimensions. You can interpret this as keeping more of the TF-IDF structure while still making the space manageable for downstream steps. This cell builds a second non-transformer representation using word2vec. The goal is not to claim this is the best embedding today. The goal is to build intuition for meaning-based vectors without introducing transformers yet. Word2vec learns a vector for each word so that words used in similar contexts end up with similar vectors. For example, words like waitress and server may end up near each other because they appear in similar review contexts. We first tokenize each document into simple alphabetic tokens. Then we train a skipgram word2vec model on the corpus. Skipgram predicts surrounding words from a target word, which tends to work well for learning semantic similarity. To get a document vector, we use mean pooling. We average the vectors of the words in the document. This produces doc embeddings W2V, again with 100 dimensions. Mean pooling is simple, but it has limitations. It ignores word order, and if a document contains many common words, those can dominate the average. Still, it is a clean bridge concept for understanding embeddings. After running, you should see the vocabulary size and the final document embedding shape. The code also prints an example cosine similarity between two random documents. Cosine similarity measures how similar two vectors are in direction. Higher values suggest the documents are closer in meaning under this representation. Later, you can compare whether TF-IDF plus SVD or word2vec mean pooling gives cleaner clusters for your dataset. Now that each document is a vector, we often have 100 dimensions. That is great for algorithms, but it is not something humans can visualize. Dimensionality reduction is a practical tool to reveal structure. The key question is simple. If two documents are similar in the original space, do they remain neighbors after the projection? UMAP is popular here because it tends to preserve local neighborhoods, meaning it tries to keep nearby points nearby. This is useful for visualization, and it often makes clustering more effective. In this cell, we project the same document vectors into two dimensions in two different ways, and we compare how the point cloud looks. First, we use a linear baseline, truncated SVD with two components. Second, we use UMAP, which is nonlinear and focuses on preserving local neighborhoods. A practical detail is that we may subsample to keep plotting fast. The point is to see the global picture, not to plot every single point perfectly. UMAP has two key knobs. N-neighbors controls how local the notion of neighborhood is, and MindDist controls how tightly points are allowed to pack together. We keep conservative defaults here. After running, you get two scatter plots. Each dot is one document. The axes are not directly interpretable as business factors. For SVD, they are abstract components, and for UMAP, they are just coordinates created for visualization. What you should compare is the geometry. In our run, the SVD plot looks like one broad cloud with gradual variation, which is typical of a linear projection. The UMap plot shows a central mass plus several small islands. Those islands suggest there are pockets of documents that are very similar to each other, which is exactly what we want to detect before clustering. This plot is a diagnostic. It hints at structure, but it does not prove that each island is a true topic. The next step is clustering, which formalizes the grouping. Here is the safe way to interpret these maps. Focus on neighborhoods and relative distance, not on the numeric axis values. If you see clear islands in UMap, that often means there are tight local groups that may become distinct topics. If most points form one big mass, that suggests many reviews mix themes or share common language, so topics may overlap. Also note that we usually do not cluster directly on the 2D map. 2 dimensions are mainly for visualization. For clustering, we typically use a higher dimensional UMap space, like 5 to 15 dimensions, so we keep more structure. Once documents are vectors, topic discovery becomes a grouping problem. Documents that are close to each other likely discuss similar themes. We use 2 clustering methods for comparison. K-means is a fast baseline that forces every document into one of K clusters, so you must choose K up front. HDB scan is a density-based method that does not require choosing K, and it can label documents that do not belong to any stable dense group as outliers. In HDB scan, outliers are labeled -1. That -1 label is not an error. It is the algorithm telling you that some documents are too unique or too ambiguous to form a stable theme, and excluding them often improves topic quality. In this cell, we run K-means as a simple baseline. We choose a representation to cluster. Here we use the TF-IDF to SVD dense vectors, which is a strong and fast baseline. Then we set K equal to 12 and fit the K-means model. The output is a cluster label for every document, and a cluster size table showing how many documents fell into each cluster. In our results, cluster sizes are quite imbalanced. One cluster contains more than 3,000 documents, while some clusters contain only a few hundred. This is a useful teaching point. K-means will always assign every document somewhere, even if a document does not really belong. Large clusters can become catch-all buckets that mix multiple themes. That is why K-means is a baseline, not the final tool for topic discovery. Now we run HDB scan, which is commonly used in modern topic discovery pipelines. The code follows 3 practical steps. First, we normalize the vectors. Second, we build a UMap structure space with 5 dimensions. Third, we run HDB scan and do a tiny parameter sweep to avoid the failure mode where everything becomes an outlier. 2 hyperparameters matter most. Min cluster size controls the smallest theme you treat as a topic. Min samples controls how conservative the algorithm is, and higher values usually create more outliers. After the sweep, the cell prints the best parameters, the number of clusters, and the outlier rate. In our run, we get over 100 clusters and an outlier rate around 20%. That means about 1/5 of the documents do not form a stable dense group, and they are assigned -1. This is common for review text because many reviews are unique or mixed. If you get too many tiny clusters, increase min cluster size. If you get too many outliers, loosen min samples or adjust UMap settings so local neighborhoods are captured better. We also print a cluster size table so you can see the distribution, including the outlier group. At this point we have cluster IDs, but clusters are not yet topics. A topic is a cluster plus a human-readable description. We typically use 2 parts, keywords that summarize the cluster and exemplar documents that show what the cluster sounds like. In the next steps, we will first generate keywords with CTF-IDF, and then we will extract exemplars so we can label topics reliably. This figure explains the intuition behind CTF-IDF, which stands for class-based TF-IDF. Start with clusters. For each cluster, we concatenate all documents in that cluster into one large cluster document. Then we run TF-IDF again, but now each cluster document is treated as a single document in the TF-IDF calculation. A word gets a high score for a cluster if it is frequent inside that cluster document, but not frequent across other cluster documents. In other words, CTF-IDF highlights what is distinctive about each cluster. This is exactly the kind of keyword summary we want for topic labeling, because it suppresses generic words that appear everywhere and elevates theme-specific words. Now we implement CTF-IDF in code to turn clusters into keyword-based topic summaries. First, we choose which clustering result to use. We typically use the HDBS-CAN labels because they include outliers, and we usually exclude outliers from topic formation so they do not create noisy topics. A quick sanity check here is the number of non-outlier documents. If that number is 0, it means HDBS-CAN labeled everything as outliers, and we should loosen the clustering settings. In our run, we have thousands of non-outlier documents, so we are fine. Next, we group the documents by cluster ID and concatenate the cleaned text within each cluster. That gives us one cluster document per cluster. Then we run TF-IDF across these cluster documents. Because we include bigrams, we can capture short phrases like num minutes or coffee shop as keywords. Finally, for each topic, we extract the top scoring keywords and merge them with the cluster size. In the output table, you can already see interpretable themes. For example, one of the largest topics is dominated by waiting time language, with keywords like minutes, table, server, and waited. Another large topic is clearly hotel and room related. Another is clearly pizza related. This is the first moment where the pipeline starts to look like a useful theme summary. However, keywords alone can still be ambiguous, so the next step is to attach exemplar documents. This cell extracts exemplar documents, meaning representative reviews for each topic. The approach is simple and intuitive. For each cluster, we compute the centroid of the document vectors, and then we select the documents closest to that centroid. Those are the most central, most typical documents in that cluster. We then shorten each exemplar for readability and produce a table with 3 exemplars per topic. When you look at the exemplars, you should be able to quickly confirm what the keywords mean. For example, an airport topic exemplar mentions long lines and layovers. A pizza topic exemplar talks about crust and sauce. A car maintenance topic mentions oil changes and repairs. Exemplars are essential for labeling because they reduce the risk of misinterpreting a keyword list, especially when keywords include generic terms or placeholders like. Now we merge the keyword table and the exemplar table into a single labeling ready view. The result is a topic labeling table with topic ID, top keywords, topic size, and a few representative documents. This is the table you would actually scan as a human. A practical workflow is to read the keywords to form a hypothesis, then read the exemplars to confirm, and then write a short business label. Now we translate machine outputs into business-ready topic labels. A strong label is short, specific, and action-oriented. A useful template is object or process plus issue or attribute. For example, instead of labeling a topic as service, you might label it as rude staff and poor communication. Instead of delivery, you might label it as late delivery and tracking problems. Try to avoid labels that are only a noun with no meaning, like food or hotel. You want to capture what is distinctive, such as dry chicken and bland seasoning, or noisy rooms and poor sleep quality. Also, avoid mixing multiple ideas in one label. If a topic seems to include 2 different issues, that is often a sign the clustering is too broad or the representation is not separating themes well. If you cannot confidently label a topic after reading its exemplars, treat that as a signal that the topic is not clean. Common fixes include increasing minimum cluster size, adjusting pre-processing, or reducing redundancy. In the next cell, we assemble the topic dictionary, which is the main artifact from this notebook. It combines topic size, TF-IDF keywords, and exemplar documents in one table, and it adds a column for human labels. In practice, this is what you would bring to a meeting to discuss customer pain points, differentiators, and emerging themes. This cell builds the topic dictionary table and exports it as a CSV file. The code first ensures we have the merged labeling table. Then it inserts a topic label column if it is missing. To reduce friction, it also creates a simple default label stub based on the first few keywords. Think of this as a placeholder that you will overwrite with a better business label. On screen, you should see the topic dictionary sorted by topic size, with the biggest topics at the top. For example, a waiting time topic appears near the top, a hotel rooms topic appears near the top, and so on. At this point, you have a human-facing table that is ready for manual refinement. Now we do one short insight step, topic prevalence. Prevalence answers a simple question: which topics appear most often in the dataset, and do some topics appear more often for a particular outcome group, such as negative versus positive reviews? We keep this step lightweight. The main purpose is to show that once you have topics, you can summarize them as measurable signals that are easy to compare across groups. This cell computes topic prevalence using the document level cluster labels. First, we choose which clustering labels define topics, typically HDBScan. Then we optionally exclude outliers, so the prevalence chart focuses on stable topics. We count how many documents belong to each topic and plot the top topics as a bar chart. In our run, the waiting time theme is one of the most common topics in the dataset. If an outcome column exists, like the label column in Yelp polarity, we also compute topic shares within each outcome group. Read this as: within negative reviews, what fraction of documents belong to each of the top topics, and likewise within positive reviews. Look at the numbers for business meaning. For example, the waiting time topic has a very large share in negative reviews and a very small share in positive reviews. That pattern is a strong signal that delays and waiting are a major driver of negative experiences in this dataset. On the positive side, topics that sound like praise tend to have higher share within positive reviews. That tells you what customers value and what you might emphasize in positioning. This does not prove causality, but it is a practical, decision-oriented summary: which themes are most common and which themes are associated with good versus bad outcomes. In the final required cell, we export the key outputs and print a short checklist. At minimum, you want the topic dictionary for human labeling, the topic keyword table, and a document level table mapping each review to a topic ID. This cell creates a clean document level table called doc topics and exports the three main CSV artifacts. The doc topics table keeps the document text, a document ID, and the assigned topic ID. Outliers remain labeled as -1 if you use HDBScan. After running, you should see confirmation that the files were saved, along with a wrap-up checklist. At this point, the core pipeline is complete. The appendix provides optional diagnostics for topic quality. These are not about finding perfection. They are about building confidence that your topics are usable. We focus on three practical criteria: interpretability, redundancy, and stability. Interpretability means you can name topics after reading keywords and exemplars. Redundancy means topics are meaningfully different rather than near duplicates. Stability means small changes do not completely rewrite the topic set. In the next cells, we implement lightweight checks for redundancy and diversity. This redundancy check looks for near duplicate topics by measuring overlap between keyword sets. For each topic, we take the top K keywords, convert them into a set, and then compute the Jacquard similarity for every pair of topics. Jacquard is intersection over union, so higher values mean more shared keywords. The output is a table of the most similar topic pairs. In our run, the highest overlap pair shares many weighting-related terms like minutes, order, and table, suggesting that the pipeline may have split one weighting theme into multiple closely related topics. Remember that overlap is a rough signal. Two topics can be redundant even if they use different synonyms, and two topics can share a few generic words even if they are different. Still, this table is a fast way to spot obvious duplicates. If you want fewer, cleaner topics, high overlap is a signal to increase minimum cluster size, adjust UMAP and HDBS scan settings, or add domain stopwords so generic words do not dominate multiple topics. This diversity check quantifies how diverse the topic keywords are across topics. We aggregate the top K keywords from each topic, count how many distinct keywords we see, and compute a simple topic diversity ratio, unique keywords divided by total extracted keywords. In our run, the diversity ratio is around 0.75, which suggests the keyword sets are fairly diverse overall. The average repeat count per keyword is close to 1, meaning most keywords are not reused across many topics. The table of most repeated keywords is also informative. If you see very generic words repeated across many topics like ordered, chicken, or staff, you might consider adding domain-specific stop words, using more bigrams, or refining preprocessing so those words contribute less. With that, we have completed the modern topic discovery workflow. Represent documents, reveal structure, cluster, and represent clusters as readable topics. In the next stages of the course, these topic artifacts become inputs for downstream marketing analysis, such as mapping brands in a perceptual space or linking themes to performance outcomes.